If you spent your whole winter scrolling social media watching bike content and thinking, man, that looks like a ton of fun, now that it's getting warm, this is your sign to go out and buy that bike. But before you do, there's a few things that I think you should do first, and today I want to walk through some of the kind of high level, what you should be considering if you're thinking about getting your first motorcycle. This isn't meant to be a super in-depth guide. This is meant to be kind of a high level starting point. Like, here's the things you should do, because a lot of these things are going to vary greatly depending on what kind of bike you want to get, where you live, stuff like that. I think the first step, once you've decided, hey, I'm going to buy a bike this year, is to start acquiring gear. Before you start worrying about a license and all that, before you sign up for a class, you want to be ready for when you have to take that class, and you're going to need gear. I'm a big proponent of ATGAT, all the gear, all the time. I always do. So you're going to want to get a helmet, gloves, boots, pants, jacket, all the above. I strongly encourage wearing all your gear all the time. Let me try not to be obnoxious in this little quaint downtown area. There's a few things you want to consider when you're buying your gear. The first is going to be fit. You want to make sure all your gear fits properly. If you have the option to go into a store somewhere and buy gear, I strongly encourage that. If there's a cycle gear near you, or if you can try on stuff, maybe a lot of dealerships will sell gear, or maybe there's an independent shop near you. I strongly encourage going in to try stuff on to get a feel for, what's going to fit. You can obviously buy gear online too. I've bought a lot of my gear online. I strongly encourage buying one of those little cloth tape measuring tapes, so you can get your measurements. You don't really want to be guessing and order something way too big or too small. The other important thing to remember is ratings. With helmets, you want to get something ECE or Snell. If it's just the DOT rating and nothing else, then I would look at something else, because the DOT rating is kind of worthless, I'm not going to lie. And then for other gear, CE rating is what you're looking for. CE impact and abrasion resistance. That's what you're going to want. These pants, for example, these are from Pandomoto. They're CE AA rated, which I think is the second highest below AAA for abrasion resistance, and they have CE, I think these are level 2 pads. With gear, I think it's usually the best to buy the best that you can reasonably afford. I'm not saying you gotta go out and buy the highest end of the highest end stuff. You don't need to go drop over $1,000 on a helmet or something, but don't buy some cheap $70 helmet off Amazon. Make sure you're buying something that's quality. It's a good quality and has a good safety rating. Once you've acquired some gear, I think the next thing you should do is go and get your temps, if that's an option, like a learner's permit, and go and sign up for a class, whether it's the MSF or here in Ohio, there's a kind of state subsidized program, the BRS. That's what I took. It's a similar kind of thing. In a lot of states, if you take a beginner's class, it'll let you sub it out for the skills test for getting your full endorsement. At least here in Ohio, that's how it works, but that's obviously going to vary greatly depending on where you live. And if you live out of the US, it's probably a lot harder to get a motorcycle license. These classes are great for helping teach you the basics. A lot of them are advertised as, kind of show up with no experience. I do recommend, watching some tutorials first, getting a feel. If you have someone who has a motorcycle who will let you, learn on it, that's great. Having a little bit of experience certainly won't hurt. Once you've got some gear, once you've gotten your learner's permit or maybe your full license through taking a class, sounds like you're ready to buy a bike. Before you do, find a few models that you're interested in. Whether if you're interested in sport bikes, you'll get beginner sport bikes, things like a Ninja 500 or an R3 or something like that. Make sure run insurance quotes on what you're looking at buying, and run them with a few different companies. You don't want to buy something and then have to go pick it up and then realize that the company you have your car insurance through is going to charge you the screw off, we don't want to insure you rate, right? Make sure you have a decent quote from somewhere. And then you have a couple options with buying. You can either do private sale, which is probably going to be a little bit cheaper, but a lot more involved. You might want to have someone who's more experienced with motorcycles and working on them and stuff to take a look at it, especially if it's an older bike. Your other option is to buy from a dealership. You don't have to buy new, you could buy used too. The problem with dealerships is you're going to have extra fees, but generally there's, I think, a little bit more of a guarantee of getting something good, unless it's a, you know, really scummy dealership, I guess. But I personally haven't done private sale. I'm currently trying to sell my old Ninja 400 private sale, but I've never bought anything private sale. All my bikes have been bought at dealerships. You might not be able to test ride, especially if you are a brand new rider. Some dealerships are okay with it, some aren't. Some sellers are okay with it, some aren't. But at least, you know, go in and throw a leg over something, get a feel for it before you decide on what you want. Whatever your decision is, whatever bike you want to get, wherever you want to go, one thing I do strongly recommend is not financing your first bike. I'm not someone who's completely anti-financing bikes. I know some people are. I've bought bikes cash, I've financed them, I've done both. But I don't think it's a good idea to finance your first one, because especially as a brand new rider, you're a lot more likely to make mistakes. That's not to say you can never make a mistake ever. Like, you can ride for 20 years, never had an accident, and then do something stupid, right? But I think that chance is a lot higher when you're brand new. And the last thing you want is to put, you know, basically nothing down on a bike and then be underwater on it as soon as you get the damn thing. Regardless, once you've bought your bike, the last thing to do is just practice. Take it to a parking lot, practice some slow speed stuff, get a feel for how it handles. You know, once you're confident at kind of some basic maneuvers and stuff, and you want to hit the streets, just be careful, you know? Take your time. Everyone learns at different paces. You don't have to rush through anything. Just because, you know, if you got a friend who rides and they're dragging knee, you know, ride your own ride, ride at your own pace. It's better to learn a little slow than it is to end up in a ditch, you know? And the real last step is just have fun. Meet some people if you want. You know, there's tons of people in the bike community are super friendly. Anytime I stop at a gas station, there's other bikers there. They're always, you know, asking about the bike and vice versa. You know, it's a great way to meet people. It's a really awesome community, and, you know, be a part of it. Anyway, I appreciate you watching. I hope to see you all on Two Wheels. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment. Always happy to share info and hopefully get some new people into the hobby. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.